All right, everybody, welcome back to the 41 Jake Show. Super pumped to have one of the best people I've ever met in the benefits world, Katie Wood. She's a benefits broker that I was lucky enough to work with probably, 6, 7 years ago, maybe not that long. And I remember going to my first meeting with Katie, and she knew so much. She literally was naming off doctors on different networks. And so when I had that experience, I thought Katie is a person I need to stick around with and work with because she is so valuable to clients. And the topic today is just about benefits brokers and 401k advisors, how we come together and work more. But I want to let Katie introduce herself, tell us a little more about you, where you are now, just give us a real quick rundown.
Great. Well, thanks, Jake. I'm excited to be here. You're too nice. I'm not that smart, but I appreciate the compliment. My background, I actually was just having this conversation with some of my team yesterday saying, grateful I didn't stay in the profession that I went to school, which was to be a teacher, because especially in this COVID environment, the last place I want to be right now is in a classroom wearing a mask all day, every day. So I bless all those teachers out there that stayed in that profession, but I just decided it wasn't for me. So through a roundabout way, I ended up in at National Benefit Services, kind of in the TPA world, doing flexible spending co-administration. And through there, just got to know all the brokers in the industry and kind of moved my way up, worked for them for about 5 years, then went to EMI Health for a year, and then I was recruited over to GBS Benefits, where I spent, and that's where we met, spent about 7 years there, and then now have been with USI for about 2 years as the practice leader for the Salt Lake City office. So it's been a crazy turn of events going from kindergarten teacher to benefits broker, but I've learned so much along the way and excited to be here today.
Nice. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, that's funny, that background, because I think very similar to the 401k world, I don't think anyone goes to school saying, hey, I'm going to be a benefits broker. I want to sell health insurance. Like, that just doesn't happen.
My 5-year-old at her kindergarten graduation did say when she grew up she wanted to sell stuff. So she clearly has a knack for selling, and I've always had that knack for selling as well. I think I sold my dad's trailer when I was about 5 years old. We had moved to Seattle and had a pop-up trailer, and pop-up trailers in Seattle don't do well. The moisture and the way that they fold down, it just turns into mold. So we had come home one summer to Utah, and right before we left, my dad was playing basketball and broke his ankle. So we drove from Seattle to Utah on his broken ankle. So we get here, and my mom takes him to the doctor, and someone had come to see the trailer because we towed it down here to try to sell it because it's a better market. And I had listened to my dad's sales pitch so many times on the phone talking to people that this couple showed up, and I rattled off my dad's whole sales pitch of all the things that this trailer had, all the features of it, and it was sold before my dad got home from the hospital with his boot on his foot. So, I mean, I guess, I was born to sell, but, I also had a love for kids and teaching and whatnot, but apparently my sales side definitely took over my teaching side.
Yeah, and I think that's what I noticed when we first had a few client or prospect meetings together was how you would come in and not necessarily be a salesy kind of approach. It was like questions, and then you'd have solutions you would throw at them immediately. You could give them good advice just from the get-go, which resonated so well with a lot of people so quickly that the sales cycle was so short in comparison to other brokers because you just came in and helped. And that was a good thing for me. It was good for me.
Yeah, that's been my approach is I don't want to sell somebody something just to sell it. I mean, I want them to know what they're buying. I want them to be educated. I like to be educated. And so that's really, sometimes I feel like I overinform or I geek out on certain things, but I'd rather, a prospect or client know what they're getting themselves into. And at the end of the day, I'm not looking for the win, so to speak. If I can just provide someone information, I'm happy to provide information as well. So there's a lot of companies out there that I've helped, that we've talked with, and, it might have taken 2 or 3 years because they weren't in a position to make a change. But at the same sense, they needed the help that they couldn't get from their current broker for whatever reason, or didn't have that, but weren't in a position to make a change. And so my job is just to educate, right? Whatever kind of spectrum you're on, but just to make sure you have all the information going in and even be that second opinion. That's kind of what we're, talking to a lot of companies right now, especially with COVID. They've got a long-term relationship with a broker. It's a 20-year relationship, but let us just be a sounding board. Let us be that second opinion, because relationships are great until they start costing you money. And I think a lot of companies are starting to realize that right now, that, okay, we've been in a position the last few years where they've been a little bit more cash flow positive or comfortable, so to speak. And now they might be in a tighter situation and having to take a look at things a little bit more carefully. And so those are things that we're able to do and are willing to do that for anybody, regardless of if they're a client of ours or not, just to make sure that they're kind of in the best position or getting what they need out of their,
Yeah, and that's a good point, because you come in. I mean, the relationship business, as far as the benefits world, that's been the norm for many, many years, where it was who you went golfing with, it was your neighbor, it was your brother-in-law, somebody. And the 401k world's been similar, but I think the benefits space is changing dramatically, where we tell people all the time, like, hire someone you can fire. Like, don't make Thanksgiving awkward because you have a brother-in-law that does a terrible job in your 401k and you're too scared, you don't want to do anything about it. There's actual risk there. And the same in the benefits world. Now it's changing. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on, it's been primarily a very, very male dominated industry, I would say. Right. And you kind of came in and, there's a lot of really amazing, I know a lot of great benefits brokers that are women, and they do, honestly, I think, a lot better job than at helping the client. But tell me about that. Your thoughts, like, coming into that space. Was that hard? Did you ever have that feel like it was tough for you, or was it always just, you just went after it and never thought about it?
No, I mean, definitely being a woman in this industry has its challenges for sure. I think our industry, I shouldn't say our industry, I think the culture, though, has evolved.
Yeah.
When I first got into the industry, just being in sales at NBS, I mean, there was, certain brokers that, or relationships that I didn't touch because they needed a man as their person, right? But I don't feel that as much anymore. I don't know if it's that I just can hold my own now, or, that truly culture is changing. Women are being more widely accepted in the workplace, or, they recognize that we bring value. I know.
And the broker role is kind of a senior, like, you're actually the one leading and directing everything, right? You still have a lot of people that have to help out along the way. And a lot of times most of the bulk of the work's done by the account managers when you kind of consider the time and effort that goes into things. And there's this weird kind of back and forth between the account manager doing their job, but the risk is on that benefits broker to keep that relationship happy and effective, and have the vision, I think, of where that client needs to go.
Selling it and walking away. And I think that's, I feel like there's two types of brokers, and that's where I feel like I've kind of benefited, because I've kind of fallen into that middle, I do a good job of kind of balancing the two. Yeah. There's those that kind of sell the business and walk away and let their account manager run and handle everything. And, I'll go out and meet with a client and ask them, who is your current benefit broker? And they list who their account manager is at the broker's office, and being in the industry as long as I was and working on the carrier side, I've worked with a lot of the brokerages out there. So I'm pretty familiar with most of the, at least the local brokers here in the state of Utah. So, I recognize names, and they don't even list who their actual broker is. It's the account manager that service, their day-to-day service person.
Yeah.
Or you've got, the smaller shops where, it is the broker and they're doing the selling, the servicing, and everything. And that's great, but their bandwidth is only so, it's limited, and they don't have the network of resources. They can't be an expert in all areas. Same, I don't consider myself an expert in all areas. I still lean very heavily on, our underwriting and analysts that we have to help with the self-funding and coming up with, the numbers behind the scenes and making sure things look good. Because, I can do the scratch test and, if something doesn't smell quite right, but I don't necessarily know. I've never been an underwriter. I don't know all the work, the inner workings of what goes into the renewal or the calculations and those type of things. So
Yeah.
I rely very heavily on my team. Same with, Lara Miller, who's my compliance attorney. I rely very heavily on her, especially right now with all of, the compliance changes. I could spend all day just on the internet trying to keep myself up to date on compliance issues. So it's, I've got a nice balance of being able to kind of be that quarterback of, knowing how to be a really great broker, but also having a team of resources behind me that can really dig into the weeds and knowing when I need to pull them in and bring them in on certain aspects. And then obviously having a really great account manager that can handle the day-to-day service issues, the enrollments, things like that, so that I'm not getting myself buried in the weeds and can really just keep that high level strategic, relationship with the client, and obviously then get involved when needed to really put, on those higher level service type issues when we're not getting what we need.
Totally. And that takes confidence. And there's a lot of similarities to what you just said and where your actual role in being strategic in a very easy, like that's how I have to do things. As far as most 401k advisors have to rely heavily on the administrative TPA team to do a lot of the work. I mean, I beat my head against the wall trying to figure out how the actuaries come up with the numbers. There's so many different parts to putting together some of the plans we do. And I can, like you said, I can kind of figure things out from a high level, but I can't do all of it and have the confidence to go into a client meeting and say, we've built a team to support you, but I'm the central hub is really, I think takes some learning, takes a little bit of effort to get to that point where you're comfortable handing off that power or whatever you want to say to someone else when it's your relationship and you want to be the most valuable, and you are by bringing in the right team. So that's, yeah, you've done a good job with that. And it's, what's great is I consider you part of that team for me, as far as when I have, client needs. It's amazing. I'll ask a client or a prospect, who's your benefits broker? And I get one or two answers. It's either the account manager, they say, or they're like, let me think. They don't really know because they see him once a year maybe.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the typical way. And I think you've done good at balancing that, of being a little bit more involved, but not, limiting your time of being in front of them and building that long-term relationship.
And that's really, and that's one of the things I've loved about being at USI is just a lot of the tools and resources that they've created and developed have made it so that we can be that much more strategic with our clients. We just launched a revision on our Omni platform, which is kind of our proprietary system that takes all of the solutions that USI could offer a client, and it puts them into one database. So it takes everything that we've done from, Texas, New York, everywhere, and really allows me to then be able to tap into the minds of all of the producers within our national, organization and bring them on a local level, and kind of gives it an approximate financial impact to a client to show them, if you were to implement this solution, this is what we would expect for you to save based on what we've done with other clients of similar size, industry, etc. And so we just did a major revamp on that system that kind of takes it to the next level. And what I love about it, and was kind of doing with the old version, but we come up with all these solutions, but the reality is when we bring on a new client, they're not ready to implement 15 new solutions that are going to save them, $400,000. They want to figure this out. Okay, how do we do this in manageable baby steps? And so this new version has actually been, created it so we can create a 5-year strategy for a client and say, okay, if you implement this solution, this is what we'll see year 1 and then the subsequent year. So is it a big savings year 1? Because you go to alternate funding, that's where you're going to see the biggest impact. But then year over year, you'll see slight savings just because of those taxes and fees. But it really breaks it down so you can be strategic and show them that 5-year plan, and then continually be innovative to bring new solutions year over year so that they're not having to pass on the increased costs to their employees by saying either we're going to raise your deductible to keep our rates low, or we just got a 10% increase, so your rates went up by 10%. So that's kind of been our goal. And, what I really have, value of the USI is our leadership team is constantly looking for new ways, strategies that we can bend that trajectory of the trend curve on health insurance without having to change benefits or pass costs on to the employer or the employees. Because we all know that, kind of the same song and dance every year at open enrollment is either deductibles, copays went up or premiums went up, right? Very rarely do you hear, oh, your benefits got better and your rates went down. That just
Right.
doesn't happen in our industry, which, so we're usually not people's favorite meeting to go to because it's like, oh, how bad is it?
Yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of similarity there in the fact that most advisors in the 401k space are doing the same thing as benefits brokers by just bouncing around, right? They come and say, all right, where we are right now is this price. If we switch over here, we're going to save a little bit of money. Do we want to go through that effort and all that extra work that comes in to doing that kind of a transition? And that's not really fixing the long-term problem. Like that's like what you're saying, like that's not really going to improve the outcome for the end employee, which if 401k advisors and benefits brokers would work together in a way that you're doing it, like a 5-year plan, that's way more valuable to them to see the path, even though you would probably want to shorten it if you could, if it was your business, you're like, what, I would just blow it all up and change everything. But you have to do it in incremental steps along the way. And that mapping that out is real value, not showing how many emails you answered or how many phone calls you took. Like that, no, clients don't care about that.
Similar to, I would imagine 401k with benefits, it touches the actual, it's something that affects every single employee. It's not like changing your property and casualty insurance and blowing up that whole program and switching carriers every single year, chasing a better rate. Every time you chase a better rate, you're changing networks, you're changing doctors, you're changing hospitals.
Uh-huh.
That's a big impact to the employees, to their spouses, and they don't like it. And same thing, if my money is getting bounced from one vendor to another, you start to question, like, what
You
is
can't
going
see the history. The
Yeah,
history disappears when you switch. And so you don't even know how your 401k is doing because now you've started somewhere fresh. Same with your benefits. Oh, I got to start. What's my deductible now? Like no one even knows what's going on. Which doctor can I go to? What hospital? Like there's so much training that goes into that people don't think through if they just go from a cost standpoint.
And I would
So,
say 401k and insurance are the two things that so many people don't understand. It's a foreign language almost. People don't, they've been on their parents' insurance for the first 26 years of their life now, right? And so even if they are working from the age of 16, they can stay on their parents' plan. But so when they have to finally get on their own insurance, they don't know the first thing about it. And I know the first time I was offered a 401k, I brought it home and looked at my dad and said, what do I do? It was when I got a job with the school district, and I had my Utah retirement systems paperwork and went, I don't know what to do with this. It's not something that they teach. And my husband and I were actually having a conversation the other day that we feel like those are the kind of classes that you need to start having in high school. Those are some of the things that they should be teaching in high school is how do you set a budget? How do you invest in your 401k plan? How does insurance work?
right. Yeah. How does it impact
Those
you?
are
And
life skills. Those are things that you need to set yourself up for long-term success. I mean, who cares if you know how to do, well, I do care if you know how to do basic math and subtract, but nowadays we've got a calculator on our phone. That used to be the joke when we were in elementary school. You're not always going to have a calculator. Well, we do now always have a calculator. It's called our smartphone. So let's focus our attention as we get, preparing for the real world on some of these real world things that most people don't get exposed to until they have their first job. And then a lot of times they don't have a trusted resource that they can get that information from.
yeah. And one person explained this to me the other day about these kind of decisions, your health insurance, your money, your 401k. We live in the world where we don't really have consequences. We buy something off Amazon, we don't like it, we just drop it in a box. It's so easy to just stop by UPS store and they take it from you now. Like it's so frictionless to go back on something you paid money for. But when you make poor decisions on your health insurance, if you go to the wrong doctor, the wrong hospital, or you don't maximize your 401k, don't even understand how it works, you take money out and take a loan, go to Disneyland, you can't come back from that. Like it's going to take years to claw back from some of those poor decisions. And a lot of times executive teams and leadership they're focused on culture of like, well, I'll love this being here and excitement, but they don't think about the long-term effects a lot of times of these decisions and really the importance of the education that comes in behind them. And it should come before they get to the job, honestly, but sometimes it doesn't. Most times it doesn't. Their family does a bad job teaching them. They didn't learn it in school. What are we left with? The account manager is in such a critical role when they have that 1 hour enrollment meeting a year to teach them everything about life from a medical standpoint. And then the enrollment meetings we had, when we worked together, I get 2 minutes at the end of a long 1 hour enrollment meeting to talk 401k. And I would end up using it all on the HSA because it was a more important topic in my mind for them to understand that. So yeah, it's fascinating how little we teach people in our culture.
It really is. And the other one that gets me the most is most people understand, I need health insurance, right? Especially now that we have individual mandate. We were all told we had to have health insurance. People get that. But the one that gets me that so many people don't, especially when it's offered on a voluntary basis, that they don't purchase is disability insurance. They're more likely to pay, $50, $100 a month to have dental insurance, which is really just more of a prepaid dental plan. Let's be honest. I mean,
yeah, you go pay cash at the dentist.
So I don't want to knock it. It's a great benefit, and I have it myself, but it pays out up to $1,000 typically per, covered member per calendar year. So you're really getting a prepaid plan. Disability insurance, that's paycheck insurance. And, you, I'm sure, know this too, being in the financial industry. What is the statistic? 80% of people are living paycheck to paycheck regardless of their income. So, can you go 90 days without a paycheck? Can you go long-term without a paycheck? If not, it's probably worth paying $10, $12 a paycheck so that if you do get sick or injured or break your leg or something happens to you, you can tap into that and have paycheck insurance.
There's way more likelihood of that than
our health, but you're not insuring your paycheck. It's mind-boggling to me. And the amount of employers that don't even offer it on a voluntary basis. So that's something, we just did a big benchmarking study for clients and prospects, just kind of being able to benchmark them, regionally, kind of based on companies in their area, based on companies of similar size, as well as industry. So they can kind of see in those 3 areas kind of how they compare. And one of the things is looking at some of those ancillary benefits and paid time off, and looking at benefits like maternity and paternity leave, because those have become very popular. Yeah. So trying to really look at that overall benefits package, not just the medical. And so, some of the clients that are prospects that I met with, their medical plan, they'd spent so much time and effort focusing on that they were almost an outlier in that, it covered 97% was the actuarial value of that plan. And so our recommendation was, let's carve that back. Let's get it closer to a 90%. It's still, top tier, you're still in the top, 90th percentile as far as benefits offered, but let's free up that other and let's offer some disability or life insurance or some of these other benefits that your employees are not going to go out and purchase on their own. And so it's how do we maybe scale that back to create a more robust benefit package that's going to not only, make you a more attractive employer, but also it's going to set your employees up for, if something happens to them, they're not going to be put in a bad situation. And as an employer, it doesn't put you in a bad situation to then feel like you have to take care of them, or, oh shoot, this person just got cancer and what are we going to do? Should we just keep paying them? Because if you do it for one, then you end up having to do it for all. So, it's just those type of things. And again, my goal is not to just try to sell product, to be a product pusher and, make more money because I have more products in there. It's really just trying to educate, let's cut out the dental and put in a disability product. If, let's trade one for the other. Because to me, disability is almost, and I would say disability is almost more important than life insurance, just because, if you pass away, yes, you're left with some funeral expenses, things of that nature. But, my spouse is still able to go out and work and potentially remarry and, all those things. But if I become disabled, my spouse might have to take care of me. I no longer have a paycheck. And that's a much greater financial burden on the family than I feel like if I were to pass away. So, and I don't think people think of it like that.
No, there's a lot more emphasis put on the life insurance side than disability when it's the stats really favor the chances of you being disabled are more likely. And it's just unfortunate that's how the industry has gone, because there's huge benefits for the insurance salesman to push a life insurance policy and mix that retirement thought or picture into that whole risk mitigation of you dying for your dependents. And it's really hard to see and to help people come out of that mess if they've taken that down that road. Most times that's like a neighbor or a friend or a family member that's told them and kind of guilted them into buying that product. And it's hard to see it, but yeah, it's good that you're pushing that. I totally agree. Disability is one of the most under discussed and I think explained benefits to employees too. Even if it was voluntary, we get a lot into it because we're in the physician space. So we very heavy focus on disability specifically for them, because that's a big deal. If a surgeon breaks his finger mountain biking, that's a huge problem. So making sure that they can cover what they need for their families is a bigger deal. But every person has that problem too of feeding their family. So cool. I like it. Well, I wanted to touch on one other topic though, before we wrap this up. Is I think what was interesting is most benefits brokers, obviously the 401k is a part of the discussion at some point. I kind of think of it as, well, I bring up payroll all the time because I have to integrate with payroll. And I always bring up benefits because now I'm tying the HSA in and I want to understand where they kind of think from a benefits standpoint and who's helping them there. And I like to work with the brokers because I want to be part of those yearly enrollment meetings too, even though I'm usually in there more often. I work a ton harder than benefits brokers. Just kidding. That's a joke. But
disagree with you with all of them.
What I've found though is there's not good relationships between brokers and 401k advisors. Like, it's kind of like you do your own thing. I'll call you if I need you, but we're not going to really work together. And I think what worked well for us in the past and why we kind of saw some success was I tried to give back more than I took. So rather than just cherry picking your best clients saying, hey, I want your biggest clients 401k plans, I went in and I was helping anybody we possibly could. So a lot of startup plans, a lot of small ones, which make a lot more money on the benefits side versus the 401k's pretty slim margins there. But that made it a little more successful. And not everybody has that option. Not everybody has an in-house 401k team. And if they do, most of the time they won't help you on smaller plans. And so how does a benefits broker how does a 401k advisor work better with a benefits broker? Like what advice do you have that would make some of these advisors out there just be more valuable to brokers, which would in turn lead to more business for everybody in the end?
Yeah. To your point, I think we had the benefit of working at the same agency, but even now not working at the same agency, I know when I have a startup 401k plan, to your point, USI, we've got a full consulting group, but they also, are typically focused on the larger or, more established 401k plans. And so, having a local startup 401k broker is a nice resource for me to have as well. And oftentimes, to your point, give more than you get back. Like, I might be meeting with a prospect that totally happy with their broker. It's their son-in-law, it's this, but then they mention, do you do 401k? And so, just knowing that you have to have that yin and yang, and you can't just expect to take all the time. It is not always going to be mutually beneficial. It might, one relationship might benefit the other person and you don't, but in the back of my mind, I always think, well, if I'm able to bring in a trusted partner on the 401k, even though I might not be the right fit today, hopefully they remember that in 4 years when they're when they need a new broker or something goes wrong, they think, oh, it was Katie that introduced us to Jake. Jake's a good guy. And then we're going to go back there. So I just think having that, good partnership and finding people that we work similar together. So I know that if I refer you in, you're going to take care of my client the same way that I would. And then knowing that we have obviously similar thoughts of, self-funding,
Progressing them through
Yeah. And
what they should be
you
doing.
support the ideas that I'm talking about with my clients and prospects. And so if I say, pitch an idea that they should move from a traditional plan to an HSA, and then they get that buy-in too from their 401k advisor that says, yes, absolutely, you should be doing a HSA. And, honestly, your employees should contribute to their HSA before they even contribute to their 401k, which I know that's, you'll tell people that, but a lot of 401k brokers might not tell their,
Yeah, they
money
make less money when you tell them that.
but
Absolutely.
it's in the best interest of the employee. So just knowing that you've got that, kind of that yin and yang, and you're working with a collaborative goal to make sure that we're bringing the employee what they need for long-term financial success.
Yeah, it's got to be a long-term play. I think there's so much opportunity out there that if we get stuck on one prospect, one client, oh, why didn't you bring me on that? Well, it wasn't a good fit, and I'm okay with that. And so we'll move on. There's going to be others. We're in the process of this week. We took over a plan from a national benefits firm that doing the benefits for the client still, but the 401k side, they did an okay job, did some work, but then kind of the service model kind of fizzled out, right? They didn't do much at all, and they need a lot more help and effort. And that's kind of our high service, high touch for their industry and their, medical office. But, I've got to put together a letter for the benefits team there to say, hey, we're going to move the 401k. We appreciate what you've done, and just kind of making that a really easy step for them. And I told the client, I said, look, I don't think they're going to have an issue with this. They make a lot more money and more expertise on what they're doing and what their core competency is your health benefits and all the things surrounding that. I don't see them putting up a huge well, you left us on the 401k, we're going to ditch you altogether. So having that balance and knowing that some people resonate better with others and just being okay with that, you don't have to win every plan.
Exactly. And we might have an account where it's better suited to stay with our consulting group in-house, and, and knowing that vice versa. So, and we don't get our feelings hurt when, and again, but there could be that same client that just has a question, and I'm more than happy to be that resource for them, even knowing that it might not be it might not make sense for me to take over as the broker on that, but
yeah,
have a piece of information that would be helpful, or, can provide them, just like I said, that second opinion sounding board. And, at the end of the day, that's our job, is just to be knowledgeable and provide that. And if we get the business, fantastic. And if we don't, then hopefully they learn something.
Yeah. And down the road, you never know, that can change. And I like it to be separate. Honestly, it was fun working in the benefits space. And I've since then worked with a bunch of different brokers. I mean, you're definitely the top of my list, is one of my favorites to go to every single time. It's a little bit strange because I know you have that big consulting team for 401ks in-house. And so some of the bigger ones, I'm like, well, and I don't care. I'll bring you in no matter what. But what's fascinating is sometimes I've worked with other brokers and I've gone into meetings with them and they didn't win the benefits, or they lost the benefits, and we would have been a perfect fit on the 401k, but because I aligned myself with them, I didn't get the 401k.
Mm-hmm.
And so it goes both ways. People don't always have to have the all-in-one solution, and I almost think it's sometimes a little nicer to keep it independent. For that reason, it kind of protects both sides from, if one loses, then the other one doesn't get kicked out,
And that's how USI does. We're that way on so many different things, even like benefit administration systems. I've worked at agencies where we provide a free benefit administration system, kind of a one size fits all solution, but that's not always what the client needs or wants. And to your point, if something goes awry with that, that's a reflection on us as the broker. And so we all lose. And so, USI, we just leverage our size of what we have, all of our clients that we have across the country. And we've got a HR, team that will do the technology analysis for our clients. And then we put them with the solution that meets their needs best. We bring them different options and let them ultimately pick, so that it's a third party vendor that they're working with. But we've been able to leverage our size, all of our clients, to get them the best pricing, the best contracts, all of that. Yeah. And to your point, having it separated where we can truly be consultative. We're not trying to push one vendor or another because it's ours. We're pushing what is going to meet your needs the best.
Yeah, which could change. I always tell people, and in the first meetings, your 401k now is not going to look the same in 3 years
And
because your business is going to change. You're going to grow in certain ways, and we need to adapt the 401k to fit that. The same with your benefits. It's same with your payroll. The same. I mean, all these different pieces of the puzzle to have a good, successful running business are going to change. That's what we know for sure will happen is change. So prepare for that. Like always be ready. And that was always fascinating to me. Like payroll was always such a weird topic to discuss with clients because there's a lot of opinions, and payroll likes to push in, certain aspects that, as far as like benefits management and ben admin systems. I mean, everybody, the 401k, the payroll, the benefits broker, they're all trying to have one solution. Which one's the best? I mean, they're all going to do the job, but you have to live with what they decide and you go forward, like, and that's fine. So being adaptable is important, and that's why I like being independent now, because now I can help anybody that comes to me, and that's opened the door to not just my own little hub in Utah. Now I talked to a new client out in Illinois the other day. So like the borders are going down. Now we can work with anybody. We're doing Zoom calls all the time.
Well, I was just going to say, thank you. I mean, as much as I don't even dare say this out loud, but I mean, that has been one of the very few benefits I would say of COVID is just, we've been able to embrace technology. We're doing more things virtually like this, like open enrollment meetings. We're closing business over the phone, which normally, took a lot of face-to-face meetings and trying to coordinate schedules and get people on planes and this, that, and the other. And now we can have everybody in a room in a matter of 20 or 30 minutes notice and, accomplish the same thing, if not better.
Yeah, we used to have to get everybody together. We used to, remember, we would travel big groups of us to a finalist meeting and waste all this time, we'd go get lunch after. And what a waste of all this energy and resources for one meeting, when now we can just jump on a call and get it all out in a call. So yeah, I do love that side of it.
I am a salesperson, so I do miss the people, connection. And at the end of the day, I'm like, if I have to look at my computer screen or myself in my computer screen for 5 more minutes, I might, go crazy. But, the amount of work you can get accomplished in this new kind of remote environment it's crazy how much more you can get done in a day by not traveling, by not having to schedule drive time.
Totally is. And that's why I want to wrap this up with one last thought from you, as far as my audience is mostly advisors and wholesalers. Okay. So they're selling 401k plans. And now that you can do Zoom calls and everything, if I want to give them some ideas of what to do to reach out to different brokers, and my thoughts, and you can add to this and give us your best feedback from your side of it, but to reach out to different benefit firms. But before you even do that, you've got to determine who your niche is, who your target client demographic is. And that's how you want to lead an initial conversation. And it's probably not going to be a lunch like it used to be. I mean, normally I just go to lunch with a broker and say, hey, who do we know together that we can go and make sure we win the business together? Now, I think you can reach out to anybody nationally if you want to, if you're set up right, and say, look, I help physician groups. I'm an expert in physicians and dentists, and I can help them maximize their tax savings. And I understand the path of, I can talk benefits with them. So I want to help support you. I want to help make sure the 401k fits into what you're doing over your plan for them. What would be appealing to you as a benefits broker if someone were to reach out to you from the 401k space to get you to actually pay attention to them and to possibly do business and bring business to them down the road?
Well, it's funny you say that because, USI, our other side of our business is property and casualty, right? And so property and casualty definitely has the verticals, niches, so to speak. And we joke in benefits that our niche is, do they have employees and can they fog a mirror, right? Because that's, but to that point, it has changed a little bit over time because, when we're working with blue collar, we might have different solutions for blue collar workers than we are with technology companies. And so when you are working with someone does have a niche or a market that they're pretty focused on, um, and they were to reach out to you, then you can create a full kind of solution. And when you can go to someone and say, we've done this for this other company, it definitely brings clout and it brings resources. And when, and like I said, I mentioned our benchmarking tool, that's really powerful data for people to have, and to be able to say, look what other people are doing. But, so it's, for us, we can be pretty specific and pull that information and tailor a solution, but knowing kind of what your niche market is, and then we can jointly create that, mutual kind of what's the overall, to your point, so that we're making a holistic.
Yeah, we know who we're going after. By
Yeah.
doing that, you think you're narrowing down your limit of who
Yeah,
you can
we're not
target,
just targeting one specific client. We're saying, okay, let's go in here with a global strategy. And it would work, and it not necessarily plug and play one size fits all, but if we're talking to physician groups or dentists, they typically have smaller offices, and, they typically don't have, and we generalize a lot in the insurance industry.
Yeah.
But so if I'm talking about a dental office, you've got the dentists, a couple of them, and then you typically have a lot of hygienists, assistants, and in most cases, they don't offer benefits, or, they have very low participation on their benefits because it's part-time moms that are working a couple of days a week and their husband carries the benefits. Again, right. I'm being very,
yeah, that's pretty common. Yes.
Do that in our, unfortunately in insurance, you do have to make a lot of assumptions and stereotypes for industries. But so how do we create a benefit package that works well for that small physician group? Or would it make sense to create a pool for them where they can pool with like-minded other dental offices where they can benefit from, a greater good? So by having a broker or a partner that works in one specific area, then you can really start to create a solution and, kind of target that market together with a holistic approach. So it's just knowing, having a broker that knows that industry and knows what the challenges that they would be facing are, so that you can go to them with solutions that would solve for those challenges.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally right. And I think by picking a niche, now you come to front of mind when those opportunities come up. Because if I just said, hey, Katie, anybody that has a 401k, you need to bring me in on, that's just asking and taking, right? And I need to know and get some conversation with you saying, who are you trying to get right now? Is it a certain size of client? Is it a certain industry? What is it that I can help find for you? And
I know if I'm working with a dental office or a physician group, that's your niche and you've got really great solutions for them. And so you're going to be my guy,
Mm-hmm.
But knowing kind of what someone's niche is, it's good to have those conversations so that it does pop up when you're having that conversation, like, oh, I need to introduce you to Jake, or I need to, make this introduction here. So I think having the partner relationships is just as important as having, going out and meeting with prospects is just as important, in my opinion, as having good vendor kind of having that circle of influence with other professionals that are meeting with the same contacts that I'm meeting with.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's what makes you more valuable is, you have a kind of a whole old Rolodex term, right? As far as who you can go to, and you're always doing due diligence. I'm doing that for all of our vendors, but you also need to know like which partners or influencers you want to work with in the benefits space, so you know who to introduce. And as an advisor, I mean, this is just my opinion as a 401k advisor, if you want to get referrals from a benefits broker, bring them business. Like, start there and you'll be amazed at the return. It might take a little time, but do that rather than just coming straight in and saying, who do you have? Which clients do you have? Let me do their 401k.
You're going to get a lot more after you've given.
Yep. Yeah. You got to do that first. You got to reverse it. Otherwise they're not going to, why do they want to throw you that business when you find out that, oh, they have this big client and they have this $20 million plan you want?
And the same goes for us too, though. When we're working with a new relationship, we can't just ask for business all the time and expect to just get referrals and never give any referrals,
Yeah.
Not only do we work with a lot of 401k vendors, but, we work with a lot of payroll vendors too. Because to your point, you said, you mentioned payroll as well, because we all have to integrate with them, right? It's all payroll deductions. And I've worked with a lot of brokers and payroll vendors, and usually the payroll vendor's biggest complaint is, you want me to give you leads, but you're not reciprocating. And that's, nobody wants to just give.
Mhm.
We're all willing to give for a certain amount of time, but it is nice, obviously, at some point to be reciprocated. And so I think for anybody in this industry, regardless of, whether your 401k benefits, payroll, business banking, I just kind of think of kind of my network. It's, you have to establish, like, I'm going to give you some leads. I'm going to build my credibility that way. But then hopefully you'll see that that's my credibility. And you're not just going to give me a lead because you owe me one, but because you know that I'm truly the best fit for that client. And I'm going to make you.
Exactly. Put
And
yourself
that's,
in the client's shoes. What
yeah.
they're just trying to surround themselves with the best people to help them accomplish their goals.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can be that person and support each other, which is supporting the client, everybody's going to win. Everyone has to win. Otherwise, they're going to keep shuffling people around. So until that, that whole thing fits, and I've seen where that gets in place, and then companies grow massive over time. And if they're not continually investing in themselves and improving their systems and just all the different things that come with growing a business to enterprise level, there's going to be some changes, but you got to know your niche first and foremost. Start there, have an expert in something, not just a size of client.
Yeah.
So any parting words, anything else you want to, any wisdom, anything we should know about in the benefits world as advisors that we can bring up?
No, I mean, I just think right now, there's a lot of opportunity. I think a lot of companies, especially in Utah, we find it's a very it's a very fully insured market. And
spreadsheets show up. What are the rates? Let's bounce around.
Yes.
Just like car insurance, same thing.
Things, as a 401k advisor, if you are talking to a client and they're looking for a new broker, they're unhappy with their current relationship, encourage them to interview different brokers. Go out for a broker RFP and keep their broker decision completely separate from the shopping of the benefits decision. We've muddied that water so much in our own, we've created that monster of our own industry, but there's only a finite number of carriers that we work with. And when there's multiple brokers quoting the same group, they all turn Switzerland, they go weird, and you're actually doing your client, the client a disservice by having multiple brokers in there. And so it's really, you wouldn't have multiple attorneys at trying your lawsuit in front of the jury. You interview them, you find out, you get their story, you figure out who you think is going to represent you best and come up with the best case study or, the best story to sell your case. And then you go to trial, right? And hope for the best outcome. And that's kind of the idea we're trying to re-educate clients and prospects on is interview multiple brokers, have them give you ideas, solutions, strategy ahead of time, figure out who you think is going to be the best at getting you the best strategy, and then let them go to work for you. And then, after open enrollment, if you don't like how they performed, guess what? You can change your broker again. It's as easy as signing a piece of paper. And there's really no disruption to your employees, no disruption. But I will tell you, the carriers get really weird when there's multiple brokers in there. So as a client, you're getting, you're doing a disservice. So as a broker, as a 401k advisor,
we live in the same world. The same thing happens. They muddy the water as far as which provider and which whole 401k advisor. It's two topics because I pay the same price as everyone else, right?
I don't want to give someone a quote on benefits because my quote's going to look the same as what they currently have. I want to show them what strategies, what resources, ideas do I have that long-term I can save them money, keeping them with United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, whoever their current vendor is. Let's just make the plan you have better rather than playing the shopping game year over year. And that's our goal. And those are the kind of clients that we're looking for, the ones that want that long-term strategy and that aren't just wanting to shop every year for the best.
Those are the ones that are new to it and haven't been through this game. And we see that the same thing in the 401k space. So that's a good way as an advisor, you can relate to brokers because they're trying to do the same thing as far as coming with creative strategic ideas on how to design the benefits package, how to design the 401k, how to work it together and to really overall be a win for the company, which needs to be a win for the employees. Yeah. And that's going to take a little bit of effort because most people don't have that formal education behind them to understand it. So there's a lot of people that have to be involved, and you have to coordinate all those, but the story is the same. Like, you add value by being strategic, and be strategic with your benefits broker is even better. If they're both on the same page as where we're trying to help the client go, I mean, there's going to be some serious movement and change and improvement in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Instead of they're going two different directions, then it's just going to be a mess.
I would agree.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I know you got other meetings, so I really appreciate you being on today. We'll have to do this again. We'll dive deeper into like self-funded and how, like how companies how a 401k advisor can support that, because in Utah, it's been crazy to see how little people understand that from the HSA or the HR space. I particularly love working in my niche because I typically don't have HR people in the middle. I deal directly with the owners, which is a little nicer to me if I can get their attention for long enough. But I would love to do some other topics with you if you're open to it. So
more topics, just because I think there's so many more areas where you can, kind of peel back the onion and find that savings and, get that, be that more strategic.
Yeah. I mean, I can come in and save a few thousand, sometimes 100,000 in a 401k. That's nothing compared to what you could do on the benefits side. Companies are wasting so much money, and you have ways to really help them on that. So we'll do it. Okay. Right. Thanks, Katie.
My pleasure.
All right.